You guys better enjoy this episode. You better enjoy it because I got to the studio and they were like, "You've not booked in, Joe." And I was like, I got the wrong week. So I had to go back the next day to get this sorted and scripted. So we got there in the end, but this was something I actually really enjoyed filming. And it's all about building momentum, and like it revolves a lot around making sure that we align to what we are doing. And this is something I've lived through a lot recently, like since I've been building the businesses, especially Coach Creator. I have honestly been operating on little to no sleep, which is not like me. I'm usually one of those guys who don't come near me unless I've had 7-8 hours. And I've probably been operating on 5 hours sleep or less for probably the best part of 6 months, which is not good. And I don't preach that in any way, shape or form. However, I think because I've been so aligned on a vision and so aligned on the purpose, I haven't felt drained at all. Like I've actually felt like I've got more energy. And I think this is something really important, that if you feel truly aligned to where you're going and the goals you've got on the path that you're on, you will automatically just feel so fulfilled every day. You'll feel excited to wake up. And that's how I felt for so long. And especially starting this podcast as well. I just love talking about all this type of stuff. And the other things that we speak about is how a lot of people think they're stuck and they're always reviewing the strategy in terms of what they need to change within the business as an entrepreneur. And I think sometimes people are looking in the wrong place, and sometimes you actually need to look internally, which is a little bit of a deep one, but you need to shift your perspective, because sometimes it's not your strategy, it's your mindset, and you're trying to build something from a place of scarcity, and you're always just doubting yourself. And I think if you can get out of that doubt-filled mindset, that's when the magic starts to happen. And then we finally speak about a quote that talks about self-awareness and how if you can't articulate problems, then stop changing your strategy. I believe it's the key to anything in life, because I believe if you're not self-aware of something, there's no possible way that you can then change it. If we're not aware, then how can we improve it? How can we fix it? So self-awareness is like the starting point that gets the ball rolling and gets that momentum building. So yeah, really cool episode. We go at different angles when it comes to building momentum, when it comes to strategy, self-awareness, and actual mindset as well. So it pulls from loads of different areas. So I think you'll really enjoy this episode. But as always, I really appreciate everyone following. Please subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. As I've said before, it's hard building a channel from scratch, but I really do appreciate every single one of you who continues to tune in, continues to give me the feedback, because it really does give me the motivation to keep this going and keep the momentum going, which is what I'll talk about right now. But anyway, enough of me rambling on. Let's get straight into it. Most entrepreneurs think they're burnt out from just working too hard, but the reality is they're not exhausted from effort alone. They're exhausted because that effort is somewhat misaligned, because burnout doesn't just come from doing too much. It comes from doing too much of the wrong things with no strategic clarity, no focus on what actually moves the needle. It's like sprinting full speed in the wrong direction. The faster you go, the more lost you feel. There's a reason your energy is drained, your progress feels somewhat slow. And as I always like to say, you feel like you're walking through treacle in a pair of wellies. It's not your work ethic, it's your focus. And just to be clear, this episode isn't about lazy hacks or just cutting corners. I'm not here to give you time-saving tricks that sacrifice your standards. That's not what I'm about. I believe in effort. I believe in doing the work. But I also believe in the theory of constraint, which says if your time, energy, and money are limited, which are your resources, then your job is to identify the single biggest bottleneck and pour your resources into fixing that one thing. And for the record, I work harder now than ever, but I don't feel drained anymore, because now every action is aligned, everything flows, and when you move in the right direction, effort doesn't burn you out, it builds you up. And by the end of this episode, I'll give you the exact 4-step framework I used to make that shift, so you can stop burning out and start building with momentum, with clarity and confidence. Welcome to Built Different, the podcast where we break down strategy and mindset for entrepreneurs. Everyone talks about systems and frameworks, but without the right mindset, you'll never truly apply them, because the most successful people all agree on the same thing. 95% of success is a mental game. It's not a physical one. And strategy is just a fancy word for prioritization. So as a business owner, that means putting your time and energy where it matters the most. But when you then combine self-belief, a clear strategy, and proven frameworks, that's when you build something with infinite leverage. And each week, I'm going to help you do exactly that. One mindset shift and one real strategy at a time. I'm Joe Cross, the founder of Excel Coaching and the Coach Creator, and this is built different. You don't lack time, you lack priorities. Let's start with the biggest lie that coaches and creators keep telling themselves. I just need more time. That one line has killed more potential than any algorithm, sales funnel, or failed launch ever will. Because the truth is, you don't need more time. You need fewer distractions and you need sharper priorities. Every time someone tells me they're burnt out, I don't assume they're lazy. I assume they're somewhat overwhelmed, not focused on the things that truly matter. They're not tired from output alone. They're tired from all the output that doesn't really matter. Personally, for me, like, this quote hit me like a slap in the face, because I've never been someone who avoids hard work. I'm someone who always gives 100%, and bodybuilding's instilled that in me from day one. But back then, I'd wake up and dive into tasks without ever asking why I was doing them. I'd always start with the easy stuff. I think a lot of us are guilty of that. Just to get some quick ticks on the old notepad because it felt productive. But really, it wasn't. I was firefighting, being entirely reactive and not proactive. No priority planning, no deep work blocks, no understanding of balancing on the business versus in the business tasks, no structure around when I actually performed best from a cognitive standpoint. But now, I build my days around my own momentum. I tick off priority tasks where my brain is sharpest. Usually that's like first thing in the morning after a double espresso and a vape, and yeah, I do really need to stop. And I batch deep script writing work away from my check-in days when I'm freshest. And everything I do ties back to the outcomes, not just the effort. The difference in my productivity is absolutely day and night in the same hours. Completely different results. And this is where I revisit the Pareto principle, the idea that 80% of our results come from 20% of our actions. So I did the uncomfortable thing. I wrote out every reoccurring task that I was doing every week and realised there was actually only a handful that truly moved the business forward. Everything else, it was just noise. I was dressing up as a necessity. I must have cut 50% out, not because it wasn't useful, because it wasn't impactful. So if you're listening to this, I'm telling you, you don't need more hours. You need to start asking yourself better questions rooted in leverage. Like, what's the one task, if I do consistently, that would eliminate maybe 10 others? What's the highest leverage action I've been avoiding because it feels uncomfortable? If I could do only 3 things in a week, what would actually move the business forward the most? Where am I confusing my motion or just doing with momentum? Because when you ask yourself these type of questions, you begin to realize that clarity doesn't come from just doing more. It comes from asking yourself better questions. And a lot of you will know Alex Hormozi is someone that I take huge inspiration from. And one of the things he often says is, just pull the thread. And what he means by that is the task that you're all putting off usually isn't as bad as it feels. But until you sit down, you open it up and you actually start pulling that thread, you'll just keep avoiding it because you perceive it as a big, vague, like unfixable problem. But once you actually lean into it and get into it, you wrap your arms around the problem, and suddenly something that felt somewhat unquantifiable becomes clear, measurable, and solvable. And that's why most people stay stuck, not because they're lazy, but because they've never taken 5 minutes to define the thing that's really holding them back. So if you're putting off that one thing right now, remember, just start pulling the thread. You'll never heal if you keep thinking and feeling the same way. So bear with me on this one because we are flipping the script to some mindset talk. This is where most strategy-obsessed entrepreneurs get completely blindsided. They think the problem is their systems, the ads, the VAs, the funnels, but often it's not your lack of structure, nor is it a lack of systems that break your business or stop it from scaling. It's the emotional state that you are trying to operate the business from. You're trying to execute from a place of stress, make decisions from a place of self-doubt. You're trying to create momentum even though you are questioning every single step that you're taking. And no amount of planning or strategy is ever going to be able to fix that, because if your emotional baseline state is off, your strategy will always be misaligned. It's like trying to build a house with no foundations. You can hire the best architects, follow the perfect blueprints, use all of the best tools, but if the ground beneath it is unstable, the whole thing is going to just crack under pressure. That's what happens when you try to scale without sorting your internal state. No tactic can override misalignment, because Your emotional state is your foundation to all of your success. Your nervous system is wired to recreate what it knows. So if all it knows is anxiety, self-doubt, limiting beliefs, it will literally invent new problems just to stay in its comfort zone. And that was me for the best part of 2, maybe 3 years. I couldn't see it at the time because from the outside, I looked like I was doing everything right. I was working harder than ever. I was hitting my physique goals. I was scaling a business. I was still training like a madman. But mentally, I was genuinely lost. I had this old school bodybuilding mindset where I believed that if I just worked harder, I could out-discipline any doubt, any level of anxiety. I could outwork uncertainty. And for a while, it might have worked, or at least maybe I convinced myself that it did. But deep down, I wasn't actually growing. I was just maintaining the same emotional state I'd always operated from. And that was anxiety, a lack of self-belief, and a spiraling thought process to go with it. Everything I did came from a place of fear of slipping, a fear of being seen as someone who wasn't on it 24/7, fear of not living up to the version that people thought I was. So instead of building something that felt aligned to me, I built a life that probably looked successful, but it was very empty. And it wasn't until I slowed down to actually listen to that feeling that I realized you can't out-discipline a nervous system that's wired for survival. You have to retrain it. You have to teach it that safety isn't just in control, it's in clarity, direction, and inner peace. So if you're listening to this, the simple fact is, if you're building a business from a place of survival, it will only lead to burnout. Whereas businesses built from self-belief, they'll only continue to compound. So the moral of the story here is you don't need to change your strategy. You might just need to change your internal state, because high quality work can't flow from a low quality nervous system. If you can't articulate your problem, you can't solve it. This is one of the most painful but liberating truths you'll ever face as a business owner, because most people aren't confused because they lack information. They're confused because they've never slowed down long enough to actually name the problem. I used to change strategies every few weeks. A new funnel, a new offer, a new landing page, a new pricing framework, a new ad copy. The list goes on. I'd convinced myself the tactic was the issue, but it wasn't. The real problem, I didn't trust myself enough to stay consistent, to give anything a real chance to work. I was never solving the root cause of the problem. I was just avoiding it. And I was calling it discipline. And this quote flipped everything for me. It taught me that clarity doesn't come from doing more. It comes from being brutally honest with yourself about what's actually broken. So now for me, every single Sunday, I sit down and ask myself, like, what is not actually working in my business, in my life? Is there an emotional attachment behind it? Can I name the problem in one single sentence? And if I can't, I don't change anything yet, because if you aren't able to define or articulate the problem, how can you ever solve it? Because speed without any direction is just noise. And in the most polite way possible, you're just a busy idiot. Or maybe that I was. So if you're listening to this is the shift that you need. Stop constantly changing your tactics. Start identifying the real problems. Even if that means having uncomfortable conversations with yourself. Because self-awareness for me isn't a nice to have or a luxury skill. It's probably the most important one you can have as a business owner. You can't fix what you won't face, and you can't scale what you don't understand. Until you learn to spot your own patterns and emotions and blind spots, you'll keep swapping strategies, when what you really need is a deeper understanding of how you operate. And the people who are able to do this, they're the ones who know exactly what to do, but also why they are doing it, when to stick to their guns, and equally, when to pivot strategies. For me, it all comes down to one thing. Make decisions from a place of logic, not from a place of emotion. Because if you can't regulate your emotions, you'll always make impulsive decisions. You'll sabotage long-term strategy for a short-term relief. You'll confuse discomfort with misalignment. And that's how people end up shooting themselves in the foot. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because real growth won't ever feel certain at the start, but it will feel aligned. And that's what you've got to chase. So now let's talk about how to actually fix this. Because by now, you know, this isn't about just doing more. It's about identifying the bottleneck and fixing it at the source. So here's your to-do list. Step number 1, identify the bottleneck. Your business is only as strong as its weakest link. And right now, there's likely one area slowing everything else down. So ask yourself, where is the constraint that's limiting your growth in the business? For example, marketing, Are you struggling to generate qualified leads? Then maybe it's time to review your strategy. Are you using the right platform, the right messaging, the right ad creatives? Do you need to look at your hooks and create stronger hooks to increase retention? Or maybe just more consistent volume? Maybe it's sales. Are the leads not converting? Is that down to your offer? Maybe your call script, your belief on the call and your confidence? Is it your systems? Are you drowning in admin and inefficiency? What tasks are eating all your time that could be automated, outsourced, or just removed entirely? Maybe client delivery. Are you losing clients after the sale? Are people actually being transformed inside your service? Or is it not living up to what was sold to them? So all you need to do is find the area and fix that one thing first, because that's where the leverage is. Improving anything other than the constraint, to me, is a waste of time. And remember, you only have so much time, money, and energy, aka resources. So allocate it to where it gives you the highest return. Double down on what's already working. Pour your focus into what's holding you back. Step 2, run the Pareto principle. Look at your to-do list and ask, what 20% of tasks are driving 80% of my progress? Circle them, then delete, delegate, or delay the rest of the items, even the ones that might feel productive. Because if they're not moving the needle, they're just motion, not momentum. Step 3, schedule deep work around your high leverage tasks. Now that you know where your leverage is, prioritize it. Block out just 1 to 2 hours to work on the business, not just in it. No phone, no inbox, no distractions. Do it during your peak focus window. For me, that's after caffeine, before my check-ins in the morning. Just figure out yours and then go deep. If it's sales, review your calls. If it's delivery, maybe rebuild your onboarding system. If it's marketing, start batching content, review your ad performance, tweak your VA scripts. You get the idea. Step 4 is align your state before you execute. This is the one that most people probably miss, because you can't do high quality work from a dysregulated nervous system. So before you sit down to work, ask yourself, am I showing up today from a place of clarity or a place of panic? And if it is clarity, just crack on and do the work. If it's from a state of panic, then even 5 minutes of journaling, breath work, or gratitude practice can shift your state entirely. It's about bringing yourself back to the present moment. For me, I start every morning with 10 minutes of Wim Hof breath work. Every single morning now. Sounds airy-fairy, I know, but it's gold. Absolute gold. Because once your body is flooded with oxygen and your nervous system is steady, your decision-making sharpens. And I genuinely feel that. It's like the fog starts to lift and I can think so much clearer. Give it a go. So to wrap this episode up, please don't leave this episode thinking that you are broken, because you are not. You are just burnt out from solving the wrong problems. Most people don't need more time, more motivation, or more tactics. They just need a whole lot more clarity. They need emotional regulation, and more than anything, they just need to start backing themselves and a whole lot of self-belief. That was the shift for me, and I guarantee you this. If you start operating from this place of real clarity and certainty, you'll look back and recognize it as a turning point in your career. The moment where everything just started to feel clearer. And if you haven't got there yet, just keep going. Just keep aligning yourself, because it will happen. So before you switch strategies again, just ask yourself the question that could change everything. Am I actually misaligned, or am I just uncomfortable and I need to start getting comfortable with it? Because when you can answer that with honesty, your entire path moving forward becomes clearer. Rewire your mind, redefine your future. You are built different.